I put this outfit on the other day and I had a physical reaction, a positive one, of kind of comfort and familiarity and warmth, almost like when you've seen an old friend. Um, I grew up in Colorado and I had a tumultuous, erratic, uh, difficult childhood. So I've divorced myself from the place. For 30 years, I've lived in New York. Over 30 years, I've lived in New York. And in some ways, I've pushed against and tried to sort of cut out where I'm from and those experiences. And of course, you can't cut out parts of yourself. They're going to be with you, they're going to be part of who you are. So I am in Colorado. My siblings are there. I love them very much. I'm very close to them and I'm visiting them and I'm on at the airport heading back to New York and there's a table full of t-shirts and I have this experience. I'm drawn over and I see this one. I really love this graphic. I've always kind of liked the Colorado Sea. It's on the flag. And of course, the mountain range and the muted colors. It's a really soft cotton. So I'm looking at this shirt on a table and I'm having this internal struggle about whether or not to buy it. I'm like, I can't wear a Colorado shirt. I can't, but I'm sort of to the point now in my life where I don't want to disown it. It doesn't work. I'm well aware of that. I've spent a lot of time in therapy working on this. It's not a thing. And part of me kind of wanted to, take ownership of where I'm from and the fact that there are things about Colorado that I love that do feel so familiar in a very good way. So I don't know how long I stood there wrestling with myself, but I did. It was $20. I'm like, pick up the dang shirt and just, figure it out when you get home. But since I've been back, that was a couple months ago, I've worn it a lot. I've worn it to the gym. I've worn it like this, just throwing it on. And I don't know, it feels good. So that day when I put this outfit together just a few days ago, in the question in the mirror, of course, after this feeling good feeling is should I be wearing a Colorado shirt? I don't know if I want to go out like this. I don't know if this is who I am. And then the other side of it was like, well, why don't I just lean into the whole thing and put my cowboy boots on, which I do own, but I didn't do that. So there's often this kind of bifurcation, sandpaper struggle going on in me a lot. These are Levi's. They're not 501s. They're just mid-rise straight leg. But I grew up in 501s. That was all we had when I was a kid. The 80s brought this surge of designer jeans and all these other styles and fits. But when I was a kid, everybody wore 501s. I've been thinking lately, maybe I should go try them on again and see how they feel. I love them back in the day. So who knows? This is a Free People flannel. Of course, it's not a typical flannel in its shape, but it gives the vibe. I wanted to come on here and share this experience with you. I think a lot about this, about how we grew up, where we grew up, what we grew up wearing, and how much that affects our style, even if we dress ourselves in reaction to it. I mean, yes, there are people who entirely reinvent themselves and come up with a totally new style, but I think the majority of us are really influenced by the clothes that initially feel good and comfortable at the time that we reach our, adult sized bodies somewhere in adolescence and we start thinking about how we want to dress and making those decisions and buying clothes. And I think it really stays with us and becomes sort of part of our DNA as we continue to mature. I am decades and decades into my life now, and those base things are still there. And it sort of struck me how powerful it can be. For most of my adult life, I have been sorting through my past, and it's been a difficult nut to crack, if you will, to look at honestly and directly. I wrote a solo show about it that ran here in New York. I'll put a link to a video below with a little more information about that. And as I've been sewing more for myself the past few years and culling down my closet and really asking myself what I want to wear, what I want to look like, what I feel comfortable in, which of course has changed as I've gotten older. That's part of the process. But it strikes me how some of the themes and feelings are very much still the same from my history. I mean, jeans have always been comfortable and familiar. So I still gravitate toward them all the time. I've talked about that in other videos and I've tried to sort of break out of that. I've made myself a few pairs of pants and trying to just break it up a little more. But I think jeans are a source of comfort. And I think dressing up, as it were, is not as comfortable and is even somewhat threatening because when I dressed up as a young woman, I was confronted and spoken to by both women and men in ways that were uncomfortable. Uh, let's face it, in the case of men, often just scary and really intimidating. So I can still get in front of a mirror and put on something that feels very dressy and fitted and a little bit sexy and where I do feel like that part of myself, but I'll question it and I'll say, do I really want to go out like this? Because XYZ might happen. And I don't know if I want to deal with that today. And I think that's something a lot of women, I know that's something a lot of women deal with. But I also just want to be myself and want to walk out into the world dressed the way I want to dress, right? And this internal uh, war is ever present, and I think it's tied to the bigger psychological struggle to, in general, live my own life and not get past my history. I don't think any of us can get past our history. And I really resent that when you've had a difficult history, when people say, well, that's in the past, just let it go. If you've had a supportive, loving, positive history and family life as a kid, no one expects you to leave that in their past, in your past. We all know that that's the strength on which you build your life as a young adult and going into your adulthood. So it's the same thing if it hasn't been that. So when people say, leave it in your past, I don't know, it drives me a little nuts. But what I want to say is, I can't get past my past. I don't think anyone should try to do that. But there's an authentic me that does not always feel free to express herself because of my past experiences. So I will at times try to dumb it down, if you will, my outfit, or make it safer. And I really want to move away from that as much as possible while still being, kind to myself. But when I look in the mirror and I have those experiences of, should I wear this? I'm trying to really understand where that question is really coming from and not necessarily, you know, heed heed the warning. There is a real risk at being yourself out in the world. Clothing, around the issues of clothing and around all issues, it's not easy for any of us to walk into the world as our real selves, present as the way we want to present, and take whatever comes back. But when you have had experiences of trauma and abuse as a kid, you you get alienated from that sense of yourself because as kids do, you think, what did I do wrong? And you begin to question yourself in ways that aren't appropriate or healthy for you, and it undermines your self-confidence, and then you're not sure. So I feel like I've spent a lot of my adult life finding my way back to the self that knows the truth and knows who I am and feels okay. And again, I can't exorcise those experiences that I had out of my whole life, but I can put them into proper perspective and get closer and closer to my real self that I really love to express through clothing. Whether it's something really cool and dressy or it's a t-shirt from the place I grew up that I feel connected to and simultaneously alienated from, and it's complicated and difficult, but I want to wear the damn t-shirt if I want to wear the damn t-shirt. You know what I'm saying? My desire to sew my own clothes and create a wardrobe. So when I open my closet, I just really love everything that's there, and everything does feel connected to who I am is is obviously about my bigger desire to feel more connected to who I am. But I think the process, the slow, getting your hands involved process of making your own clothes is one form of therapy, if you will, to get to that end goal. Because there's so many little decisions made along the way when you're making a piece of clothing. And, sometimes it hits and it's great and I love it. And sometimes I finish it and it's just not. But I think that's what it's been about for me. And beauty in general and art has always fed me since I was very young, and beautiful clothes are little pieces of art, in my opinion. So I'll wrap up here. I hope this was helpful or interesting or informative in some way to you. I would love to hear any comments you have about what I'm talking about. I'm sure I will continue to make videos and talk about this more. Identity and creativity are deeply intertwined for me. Um, so yeah, wear what you want to wear as much as you can. Try to wear what you want to wear. It's me talking to myself, and look in the mirror with some kindness. And thank you for listening. I'll be back again soon with another video. Okay, thanks.